Record. Thank you. I am Rose Wesson. I'm the Associate Provost for Research here at City College. And if you're not aware, every month we have the Office of Research sponsors Research Seminar Series. So today we're fortunate to have Tricia Mayhew-Noel, who's the Director of the Research Compliance and Ethics Program here at City College, and Shih, who's Director of Research Development. They're going to talk to us about one of our new modules in Cayuse, which is called Outside Interests, and it helps us streamline our conflict of interest activities here at City College. So Tricia and Alan.
Thank you, Dr. Wesson. As Dr. Wesson indicated, my name is Tricia Mayhew-Noel. I am the Director for Research Compliance and Ethics at City College of New York. I work collaboratively with CUNY's Office of Research. And today's presentation is on our Cayuse outside interests, but we're touching a bit on conflict of interest at City College of New York. So we'll lead into the outside interest platform following a little and brief introduction of conflict of interest. And I will also mention that Dr. Alan Shih will be joining us in doing a presentation. So he's collaborated on this as well. So let's get with some key conflict of interest terms. They include research, which is what people at CCNY or researchers at CCNY are conducting. And this is a systematic experiment, study, evaluation, demonstration, or survey in any academic field. So I've had people who are in architecture who have submitted research to us as well. And this is designed to develop or contribute to general knowledge, basic research or specific knowledge, applied research by establishing, discovering, developing, elucidating, or confirming information about or the underlying mechanisms relating to causes, functions, or effects. We have the sponsored projects, which many of you submit. These are project activities that include research, creative activity, and training. It includes instruction or service undertaken within or behalf of the university, pursuant to funding or other support from an external source. And we have you, the investigator. These are your project directors. They may be principal investigator. They may be a co-principal, or their students. They are any other person, regardless of their title or position, who is responsible for the design, conduct, or reporting of a university-sponsored project, which may include, for example, your collaborators, your consultants, whether or not such individual is employed by the university or the research foundation. Other key conflict of interest terms include your institutional responsibilities, and these are your professional responsibilities on behalf of the university, and they are performed in the course of and within the scope of your appointment or your employment by the university. And they may, for example, include activities such as research or research consultation, teaching, professional practice, institutional administration, committee memberships, particularly if you serve on such panels such as the IRB, Institutional Animal Care and Use Committees, or the IACUC, or the IBC. What is a conflict of interest? So we're here to talk about reporting these types of conflicts of interest. And a conflict of interest exists when two or more contradictory interests relate to an activity by an individual or an institution. And the conflict lies in the situation, not in the behavior or lack of behavior of the individual. That means that a conflict of interest is not intrinsically a bad thing, and many of them can be managed. Your college conflicts officer, and we'll go into that a little further as well. And these are appointed by the college president at every university within CUNY. The college conflicts officer is responsible for receiving and reviewing all financial disclosure forms from investigators at the college. The college conflicts officer also determines whether or not these significant financial interests may be related to the proposed sponsored project. And if so, whether or not the conflict exists, and if so, whether it could be managed or is a part of the sponsored project. The CCO assist in the implementation and monitoring of any management or oversight plans that are developed by the conflicts committee. So there is a conflicts of interest policy that is disseminated by CUNY. They're CUNY's conflicts interest policy and procedures, and they're designed to ensure, to the extent possible, that financial interests and/or conflicts of commitment are managed, and that they can prevent the bias in design, conduct, reporting, or regulatory review of research. Their website can be found here. They have a whole comprehensive page on their conflicts of interest program, on the conflicts of interest program. And the purpose of this policy in sponsored projects is, of course, to promote the integrity, and they establish standards and procedures to ensure that any significant financial interests that could directly and significantly affect the design, conduct, or reporting of a sponsored project at the university, it does not bias the design, conduct, or reporting of the sponsored project. So like I said before, each college or each college within CUNY appoints a college conflicts officer who is appointed by the president or their designee. And they serve really as the first level of review. Our office, our college conflicts officer, works collaboratively with my office, the Office of Research Compliance and Ethics, and they work with the CUNY Office of Research staff to implement the CUNY conflicts of interest policy for promoting the need to disclose significant financial interests to faculty and staff at their college, and of course for reviewing all those disclosures in accordance to this policy. So these conflicts, if determined, if they're related to the researcher's commitment, they should be disclosed to the Research Integrity Officer. And the Research Integrity Officer currently at City College is Dr. Rosemary Wesson. The conflicts related to the research involving human subjects should be disclosed to the HRPP office, HRPP program, which is also within my office, the Office of Research Compliance and Ethics, as well as any conflicts relating to animal subjects should be disclosed to the Animal Care and Use Committee. So CCNY's College Conflicts Officer is Dr. Maria Lima. She's a medical professor and she's in the molecular, cellular, and biomedical sciences, but she's also the Dean for Research at City College. Sorry about that. So a significant financial interest is determined when one or more of the following financial interests of an investigator and the investigator's spouse and dependent children. So it's not just the investigator, but it's also their spouse, their dependent children. And that may reasonably appear to be related to the investigator's institutional responsibilities. If there is some type of equity ownership and intellectual property, then that has to be disclosed as well. So each CUNY investigator who has become aware of a company's acquisition or intention to acquire ownership of or a license to investigate, develop, created, or discovered intellectual property must also complete the CUNY acquisition of or license to CUNY, commonly known as a CALCIP form. It's a lot to pronounce, but we fondly call it our CALCIP form. So if you have that type of disclosure, you would need to complete the CALCIP form. Currently, researchers are expected to disclose any financial conflicts of interest using the significant financial disclosure and supplement forms. And that is our current procedure. These forms would then be signed and returned to my office via email. So these are what the forms would look like. And if you are conducting research that is not supported by the Department of Health and Human Services, public health agencies, then you would complete one of these forms if it's not supported by one of the PHS agencies. So you would complete the initial form, and if there's an affirmative response on the initial form, then you would complete the supplement form. But if your project is sponsored through one of the public health services agencies, you would currently complete this form, the initial form. And again, if there's an affirmative, you would do the supplement form and send those back to the office. And these are your public health services agencies. There are 8 of them that are recognized. There are also 3 HHS agencies, but the PHS agencies are the ones that we are particularly concerned with. Of course, these can be found from the Department of Health and Human Services website. So there are procedures for complying with these PHS requirements. And back in 2011, there were revised regulations through the Department of Health and Human Services. And this is in regards to the responsibility of applicants for promoting objectivity in research for which PHS funding is sought. So therefore, in 2012, CUNY had put out some new policies, the conflict of interest policy, in which we are to adhere to. And these were applicable, the PHS requirements were applicable to any PHS or to all PHS authorized research. And they include your research grants, your co-op agreements, your career and development and center grants, fellowship and infrastructure awards, institutional training grants, all program projects, research resources awards, conference grants. And so all are listed here. And again, what they would have been receiving PHS funding. Of course, it would not have been applicable to phase 1 small business innovation research, which are your SBIRs or your SBTT applications. To comply with these PHS requirements, any public traded entity, if within 12 months, the total salary or any payment for these services from an entity and the value of any equity interest in the entity exceeds 5,000. It's the same threshold of 5,000 for your non-public traded entity. However, with the non-public traded entity, you would need to meet either the salary requirement or the equity interest if it exceeds 5,000. For the publicly traded entity, it's just, it would have to be both. You'd have to meet both requirements. Or any income that you receive from intellectual property rights. And of course, for the occurrence of any reimbursed travel, you would need to report that as well. Of course, there are training requirements for recipients who are receiving PHS funding. Since this was enacted through DHHS and the PHS agencies, you are required to do training through the Collaborative Institutional Training Initiative in conflicts of interest. And it is required for all investigators prior to engaging in research related to any PHS funded grant or co-op agreement. Additionally, our college conflicts officer may require individuals at CCNY to do this training online. You know, of course, with such considerations as to the nature of the existing conflict, any non-compliance with the CUNY conflict of interest policy, or non-compliance with the management plan. Your training is valid for 4 years, and you can get the detailed requirements and instructions from CUNY's website, Office of Research website. So, you know, I explained how we are currently completing these FCOI forms of financial conflicts of interest disclosure forms, and there are pen and paper based forms right now. You would complete those, you'd send them back via email. What we are introducing is our new platform for hosting these forms and for routing the review of a potential conflict of interest. So we are introducing to you today Cayuse outside interest. This is the first picture on the top is what you would see when you receive a link to use your SSO, your single sign-on credentials, and you can then log in and you would be taken to the dashboard in which will show you how to submit your disclosure forms. So in submitting the COI financial disclosures, you're going to submit your new COI financial disclosure at the time of an annual campaign and when submitting a new proposal with the Office of Grants and Sponsored Programs. The annual campaign is conducted at the beginning of the calendar year. You'll receive emails for the annual campaign, and then you will get notified of the period and the task to complete the disclosure. And it's simple. You click on the link to the OI portal during the campaign period, and you complete annual disclosures for both PHS as well as non-PHS research, regardless as to whether you have PHS research or not. You would need to do both annual disclosures. So that's done again within an annual campaign period. So there would be two types of disclosures in OI, in outside interest. You would have your annual disclosure, and then you would also have your research-based disclosure. And again, this annual disclosure, why we want you to complete this is because this would serve as a master form where all your relationships with any external organization are captured. It must be updated yearly and whenever there's a change in your relationship. The annual disclosure must be updated prior to completing the research-based disclosure. So once you've done the annual disclosure, and let's say later on in the year you are submitting a research project or sponsored project through the PAR system, we'll ask you now to do the research-based disclosure. We'll always also ask you whether your annual disclosure has been updated. So it'd be great to get the annual disclosure done and keep it out of the way, such that when you do have the research-based disclosure, when it's required is when you're submitting a proposal. And your responses would be specific to the proposed activities of that proposal. So this is what it looks like on your dashboard and when you're ready to submit. So when you're submitting a new conflicts of interest financial disclosure, you'd go to the upper right-hand corner of your name in My Profile. You click on your profile or My Profile, click on the conflict of interest disclosure on the left, and then in the upper right-hand corner, the next screen comes up and you would get new disclosure. And that's how you would create a new disclosure. There's always a help button that will be available to you. And this, if you ask for step-by-step instructions, that will appear and just guide you through the entire process of how to submit your new disclosure form. When your responses, when you're completing the forms, the form questions are all similar to the paper-based forms. So it's nothing that's changing as far as the questions. It's just the method in which we're collecting the information now. So all the questions remain the same. When you answer yes to a question, an additional question would appear dynamically for you to answer, right? So if you select an external organization or you say, yes, there's an external organization, then more fields would be appearing for you to complete. Well, how do you add this new relationship? You would need to select the entity of the external organization that is potential conflict that is associated with. You would search for your external organization. And if your external organization is not found, you can go ahead and type that in and a request for us to add the external organization will appear on our end. So that's all on the back end, and we'll add that external organization. You would then enter the name and save. This is what the workflow would look like, right? How is it processed and how is it reviewed? So when you as the researcher complete a financial conflicts of interest disclosure, the FCOI disclosure, my office receives it and we review and process it and send it over to our college conflicts officer, Dr. Lima. Dr. Lima does a complete review and may ask for revisions or clarification. If that is required, it's sent right back to the researcher and again back to my office when the researcher makes those revisions. If no revisions are needed, then it goes to the CUNY Conflicts of Interest Committee review, which is within the CUNY Office of Research. They may do a review and they may ask for clarifications. Of course, then they would send it right back to Maria, to Dr. Lima, in turn, who would also send it back to the researcher or request clarification. If CUNY Office of Research in their review at the committee does not require any further revisions, the committee would then review it. They may come up with a management plan, issue a resolution, and then the disclosure process is complete. and you would be notified as the investigator. So we're looking to roll this out this academic year. Right now, we're doing the internal testing period by the implementation team. Our team is now internally testing. In March, we expect to finalize the form design and the testing with the vendor. We're looking for an early April campus rollout, and we're starting with the Division of Science. Come May, June, we're going to do some phased-in rollout with the rest of the campus. I will now turn this over to my colleague, Dr. Shih, who will do demonstrations for you and guide you on how to maneuver through the OI.
Thank you, Tricia.
And
during your presentation, I'm sorry, I just caught a small mistake. The Small Business Technology Transfer is actually STTR.
STTR, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, that's okay. Stop share.
Yes. So let me share my screen. So I'm in this Cayuse, so-called OI that Tricia mentioned. And this is the system that we are developing now and will be rolling out for everybody to submit their conflict of interest informations rather than the paper PDF forms. It will be through this online portal. And so as Tricia mentioned that you can come to your name and under the My Profile, that's where you will get the link to do the disclosures. Of course, as Tricia mentioned that there is always a help. So if you go to help during any time, you can go to show me how to, and then submit the COI disclosure. Then you say, take a tool. It will show you step by step where to do the clicking. And so in this case, I click on My Profile and it showed me that. And then it will come to this to show me that this is the one that you should click. And so I click on that. And then click on New Disclosures. And so you can process that way. And so that's the tool. So it will come to this, allow you to decide which one that you want to disclose. As Tricia mentioned that there are two types of disclosures. One is annual and one is research-based. So when you are submitting a new proposal, you will be submitting the research-based disclosure. And so that's what we will be doing. And since I already started a new one, I don't want to create an additional one. So I'm just going to use the one that I initiated but haven't completed yet. So under the research-based disclosures, you will see multiple sections. And the multiple sections are the sections that you will be walking through, and they will have a lot of rates. In this, with an eyes, it just show you that this is information sections. And so there is no specific actions that you need to take during in that section or require mandatory actions. However, if you look at the second one, it shows 8. That means there are 8 actions that you need to, or 8 answers that you need to provide. And that does not always stay at 8 because it depends on how you answer some of your questions that may expand additional questions for you to answer, and therefore the number of actions will change dynamically. So just don't be confused when the number become 10 or whatever afterwards. But anyway, there are several sections. So general informations provide you with some descriptions, and these descriptions actually came from the CUNY form. So it's just a pure copy and paste over. And here we also try to expand some question and answers into the FAQs to help you to understand what need to be done. So we will continue to expand those FAQs, but the description is basically in the general informations. The second section, by the way, you can navigate through different sections as you wish. You don't have to wait until you complete one section before you go to the next. These will be the basic, the set of questions on those two forms that you are familiar with, the Form 1 and the supplement forms. These questions will all be presented here, but it will be in a dynamic arrangements. The third section is the document section. And as you can see, it already turned green. That means it's optional and there's not really an action that I need to take unless that I need to. And the design for this particular section is not for you during the initial disclosure for you to attach documents unless that you see a certain explanation of your relationship is necessary. Then of course you can upload the files here, but it is not required that you upload anything. During the review, however, Tricia or Dr. Lima might ask you to upload a certain document. So they will return your disclosure back to you and ask you to upload a certain items. Then this will be the place where you can upload external files to it and then resubmit it. The last section is the certifications. Basically, you just, it is similar to what's on the current CUNY form. It is asking you to certify and then you sign it. But instead of a physical signatures, when you do this, I certified, you can do the submit. But because I have so many unanswered questions, so it won't allow me to submit at this point. But this is where you do the submissions. So if you go back to the general informations, you read through it, and if you need to skip it, that's fine. So here you can see the questions, and let me answer some notes so that you will see that some of them disappear. Okay. So initially it will ask you if you have updated your annual disclosure. And as Tricia mentioned, the annual disclosure is the master copy of all your potential conflict of interest relationship. And so every year we will require you to update that. And at the beginning, obviously, you did not have any annual disclosure to update with. Therefore, you will be submitting a new one. And so after you submit that, then you can answer yes. But if you say no, you see that other questions disappear, and it will actually give you this instruction. It asks you, do not answer this question, but update your annual disclosure first. So you should exit out this particular ones, go back to your profiles, do your disclosures, and either update an annual or you make a new disclosure of annual. Okay. So let me get back to this particular ones. And as you can see, the action become just one now because there is nothing that we should proceed. But now if I say yes, I have already have an annual disclosure in place, and I am going to proceed disclosing my research base for this new proposal that I'm going to submit. So here, at this point, we still have to ask you to manually enter the proposal that you are submitting. Unfortunately, right now, there is not a very good integration by the vendor yet to the SP and Cayuse 424 that we've been using, but that will be a future integrations. But at this point, you will answer the proposal number that you are disclosing this research-based disclosure for. And it will ask you if this is PHS related or not. And if you say it's no, then you will see a lot of a question pop up, and it has this question designation of MP, and that's just our internal numbering, just to denote that this question is associated with a non-PHS. But if I say it's a yes, then you will see that these are regular numbers, and these are actually with coming from the PHS disclosures. But when I say yes, it will ask me if I have completed the COI training on CT programs. And of course, there's a link to the CT program site. And if I say yes, that's fine. But if I say no, that also stopped me because you should have that COI training certificate first. So let me just say yes. So once I say yes, it's I have completed those, then I can continue to disclose associated with my PHS related questions. And these are entirely copied from the PHS, the CUNY forms associated for PHS disclosures. So with respect to this, and let's just say that I answer no for these, let's just say that I don't have any conflict at all. And I'm not going to detail about each of these questions, what they were asking, assuming that you are familiar with those. For those detailed form and detailed questions and what they were asking, that's a separate subject, and we can certainly discuss on that outside this seminar. So if I say no to all the questions, you can see that this is checked. And that means I have no actions further on answering questions. And of course, I click on the general informations just to turn them green, and then there's nothing that I need to upload. It will turn green. And now if I come to this, once I click on I certified, it actually save it and then allow me to submit it. And once I submit this one, it will actually go to Tricia, and then further down the flow chart that she presented. And hopefully that the whole process will be completed. And since you disclose no conflict of interest at all during these sections, then certainly that will be quickly processed through. But let's just say that I do have something. Let's say that I received $10,000 from ABC company outside my outside my CUNY or City College salaries. So I said, yes, I do receive salaries over in excess of 5,000. That's the threshold in the PHS form, and the non-PHS form has a different threshold of 10,000. So I say yes. So as you can see here, let me just go back here. Now there is a 1 here. That means you have one more question that you need to answer. And so I want to disclose the salary. I don't own anything about the ABC company. If you do, or it's a combination of both, you just basically check whichever is appropriate. Let's just say that I only received money from them, payment from them for the service I provide them, consulting service or whatever, but I don't own anything of equities to the company. And so that's the only thing I check. And here is the probably a little bit challenging part to new users is how do I write down the company? And so as you can see here, is a salary or any other services in the past 12 years. So I want to add a new relationship because I do have this financial relationship of $6,000 or whatever that I received from this company, ABCs. So this will allow me to disclose my relationship with ABC. So first of all, I need to identify the company ABC. So I use this link to say find external organizations. And I want to search if ABC has already been listed on our list. And obviously it is not. And so this is one design things that I'm not quite happy with, because both of them say click to search. And if I type in ABC, not really for me to search. You actually should use this one and always use this one. So now it will automatically trying to find out if anything started or has the words that or characters that you just entered. So there is nothing called ABC. So in this particular case, you see that this one actually become active. Let's just take this back again. Again, this list does not have ABC. And if I type in anything here, ABC here, you see that there is no way for me to search it. There is no way for me to request it because this is grayed out. And that's what I say, the design need to be further improved by the vendor. But at this point, if you type in ABC here, you can see that it says you cannot, you don't have it. And so now you can request new external organization. And that is where you type in ABC company. And then you save it. Obviously, ABC company will not be immediately active on our list. However, you don't have to wait until we validate that company before you finish up your disclosure, because you want to complete this form right now. And so you can see that the ABC company is actually has a clock to it. That means this is pending for approval or for activations, but you don't have to wait for it. You already put that here. And so now I save it. So ABC company is there and with a pending signed there, that's okay. And so relationship to self, and you can say, oh, I received it. Not my wife, it's me who received it. And the nature of it is payment for consulting. Amount for that I received in the last 12 months, let's say 6,000. And relationship to your responsibilities, Tricia, what you write there is that
so this is a relationship to your institutional responsibilities. So if this payment that you're if it is that you are
consulting,
consulting, and it's related to what your work is at the institution, then you would say the relationship is consulting based on knowledge or experience gained or at City College, at your institution.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Correct.
Right. So that I have already do that. And if I were lucky enough, popular enough, there may be another company, DEF company, also pay me 6,000 for my consultations, then I can add another one. And if this is a mistake or you make some mistakes and you want to delete it, you can always delete that. Anyway, so that's one. And so if any of these questions, basically, if you are familiar with the previous disclosure form, these are the form 1 question. And whenever you answer on yes to the form 1 question, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, then it will dynamically show these disclosure supplement questions for you to answer to. And so again, if I answer yes, I also, with respect to the non-public trade entities, I receive salaries, then you need to add another relationship to the company or to the entity. And so all these are basically something like that. Okay. And so I will answer no here. So now all green check mark. Basically, I answer all my questions. And so no more action is needed. And I just need to come over here and then do the submission. And once I submit, so let me see here. So it should show the status as submit. Oh, there we go. So it's now under pre-review, and basically Tricia's office will be doing the pre-review, and then she will forward the case to Dr. Lima and forward that to CUNY Office of Research staff for them to continue to prepare it for the COI committee review and onward. So following the flow chart that she mentioned. But that's the basic process of disclosing a disclosure. And in this case that we just demonstrated, it is to the research base. And this will be triggered when you submit a parse to GSP office asking for assistance to submit a new proposal. Then you need to do one of these research-based disclosure for every single proposal that you are going to submit. It's just a replacement of the process that you complete the PDF forms and then email that to the GSP office staff when they preparing your proposal. It's the same thing. We're just trying to do away with this PDF emailing of the forms and then have this single place to record all your answers and then have the review process done in a digital format so that we can do away with those PDF. Also have a singular place to record the informations, and hopefully with a better integration with the Cayuse 44 and so forth, it will be easier for you to identify the proposal numbers quickly without entering it manually. At this point, that's what manually entering of that will be. Okay, so this is the gist of how the disclosure will looks like. And similarly, you can do the annual disclosures, and which will be more elaborated. Let me go ahead and do one, but not to complete it, and just to show you what it looks like. So here you will see the still the same thing for the general informations. And instead of choosing PHS or non-PHS, this master form actually asks you to complete both forms. And if you don't have any conflict at all, that's great. You just answer no's to all of these. And if you do, then you do the identification, add the new relationship, just like what I did minutes ago. And same thing for this. Document section, again, it's optional. And then finally, the certification. Once you finish all the answers and responses, then you will be able to certify it. And then the submit button will be active for you to click on it. And then onward, again, it will follow the workflow to go through the review process. All right, so that's all I have to demonstrate at this point. Again, we are trying to make the forms as intuitive as much as possible. And so we are trying to create some of these populate some of these help tips, and so that you will be able to click on it. I mean, hover over it and then be able to get some instructions. And also we are trying to provide necessary information in the general sections here. Okay, any questions?
So I have lots of questions.
Okay, sure.
So first of all, if I'm a researcher and I have no potential conflicts, do I still need to complete these forms?
Yes,
Why?
because even though you don't have any conflicts, this is the CUNY policy that you still need to disclose that. Tricia, you may.
Yeah. Once you're engaging in research at City College of New York, at the university, any of the other colleges, yes, you need to submit your conflicts of interest forms for review. You also need to complete your responsible conduct and research training. And if you have a PHS funded proposal, then you also need to complete your training in conflicts of interest through the CITI program.
And if you have submitted the disclosure before for your proposals, even if you don't have any conflicts, you answer no's to all the questions on the form 1, and you don't have to submit the form 2, which is the supplemental questions. And in this new scheme of things, when you say no's, those supplement questions won't pop up anyway. So it's basically not burden you with additional question. You are still answering no's to only those form 1 questions.
And it's also safe to say approximately 95% of our research faculty or research staff do not have or indicate for conflicts of interest. So many of our researchers check no all the way down, and then those forms are auto-approved.
Okay. Are these forms, is it a CUNY requirement? Is it a federal requirement? Well, who oversees this process?
So the conflicts of interest came about, enhancing the conflicts of interest program at CUNY came about with, of course, the revision in the DHHS rules for public health service awards. CUNY enhanced the program, and in 2012 they sent out memos for us to review the new policy that they had, revised policy that they have. And now that the policy is in effect, we as one of the CUNY institutions, or all CUNY institutions, have to abide by those policies. So the policy is really coming down from the federal agencies. CUNY has determined what or how we would satisfy those requirements, and of course disseminated that information to the various colleges to abide by the policy.
Okay, now you also spoke about COI training, conflicts of interest training. Is this the same as RCR training, responsible conduct for research?
No. So RCR training is required of all researchers. I'm sorry, yes, all researchers, regardless of whether they have funding or no funding. Conflicts of interest training is required when you are submitting for funding through the PARS system. So if you are doing, if your project is funded by the public health services, one of the public health services agencies, yes, you would need to complete that conflicts of interest training. That is the requirement that came down from the Department of Health and Human Services. So at this time, we're only requiring or expecting those persons with PHS funded projects prior to starting your project or initiating your research, complete your training in conflicts of interest.
So to be clear, if I've done my RCR training, do I still have to do COI training?
Yes, you do. If your project is funded by one of the public health services agency, or maybe if the college conflicts officer determined that, as an individual, you should be subjected to completing. Maybe you had a management plan in the past and it wasn't adhered to, or maybe you've had conflicts in the past and you were adhering and your training, it wasn't done, or maybe it was expired, then you would absolutely need to have it completed.
And how long is the training good for?
They're valid for 4 years before you do the recertification.
All right, and then my last question is, you mentioned PARS. So this process occurs currently in PARS, and how is it different now?
So currently, and maybe Candace can speak to this, currently investigators, when they're submitting for a sponsored project within PARS, receive an email from one of the team members in GSP requesting for them to complete their responsible conduct of research training. The conflicts of interest, and for their conflicts of interest disclosure forms. So they are sent the forms in a PDF format for them to complete, and they return those forms to the individual from that office who requested it. Now, like I said, many of our researchers indicate no all the way down the line. So, those are auto-approved. However, some people are confused by the questions, and the questions may come back with an affirmative for a response, because again, it's asking as how it relates to your institutional responsibilities. And a lot of people skip that. They just think that they should list any company in which they have maybe stocks in, right? So a lot of people miss the point that it asks how it relates to your institutional responsibilities. So if you indicate yes, and it's actually relatable, then those get forwarded to me. I request additional information as needed, and I forward those to Dr. Lima for review. If there was an error on the form, I indicate that to the investigator. They revise the form, and they may just indicate no all the way through at that time, in which it's approved by Dr. Lima. Send those off to Dr. Lima again and get her okay on that.
So that was the old process with the PDFs. So now in the new process.
So the new process, what we're anticipating is that the investigator will also receive an email for them to go on the OI platform and submit that through the OI platform. But you'll still receive that email reminding you to do so.
And
the other time that you will be reminded, of course, is through the annual campaign period. And so that we're planning to do at the beginning of each year. We'll run that period for, we haven't determined how long, but investigators will be reminded to at least update their annual disclosure form. And, somewhat of a hack that I had noticed, some of the answers do transfer over, but don't depend on that to be done.
Okay. So you said you were going to start with science. So does that mean that science faculty who submit proposals will be the first ones to experience the new system?
The experimenters, yes. Yes, so we're hoping to get really good feedback from the Division of Science. And of course, any changes or recommendations, suggestions, we welcome those. They can be sent to me, or to Alan, to anyone within actually, and we'll acknowledge and see if it would make, meet as a team, of course, discuss and see how we can either get it incorporated or, revise the form as needed throughout. This it's not set in stone. I mean, some of it is, but we will work with investigators to make this as easy as possible to get this through. Our goal is, of course, to maintain compliance with the policy.
So one quick question before we end, but because I still have to make my announcement. You mentioned that all investigators who received PHS funding will need to complete the COI training prior to working on their grant. When will this become effective?
Can you repeat that, please? When will the
COI training prior to working on their grant become effective?
It's in effect.
So
COI training?
Yes.
So it's in effect, and if you haven't done so, you need to get those done ASAP. If you have PHS funded
Right.
projects, if you're an active researcher with a PHS funded project, then you must have that certificate of interest, training certificate in conflicts of interest.
Okay. Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, Alan.
We had someone in the chat. Sorry, you mentioned all investigators who receive PHS funding.
That was me. I just read that.
Oh, sorry. Oh, great. Thank
All
you.
right. Just as a reminder, we have another seminar next month, March 9th. College-wide research vision presentation, updating Yana Kachiba. The team that they have is doing climate change research. They will present on March 9th at 2 p.m. and we hope to see you there. So thank you for joining us. If you have questions, Tricia and Alan are available. Just send them a note and we will take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
everyone.
day.
Have a good one.